Hey, what's up guys? Peter Diaz here coming at you today with my latest video. Still working on the car, getting it ready for this season and the events coming up, mainly the R2X event that's coming up at the New York International Auto Show. So by now the block's painted, everything that I wanted to get powder coated is powder coated. A few other little knickknacks that I want to get painted, but pretty much everything's back and ready to go now. So now the reassembly process starts. While I had everything apart, I wanted to take advantage and clean up a few connections and things that were done kind of just quickly when we were getting the car back together in June of 2020. So now just taking some additional time to clean up some of those loose ends. So right now, what I have in front of me, I'll be working on the starter, fixing the main power wire that comes off the battery that goes directly to the starter. Has some frayed connections and just overall needs to be addressed and cleaned up. Once that's done, I'll get that mounted back into the car. Probably focus on getting that side of the block wrapped up. So put the oil pressure sensor back on, which was leaking. So address that with the threads. And also want to redo the ground. So at the time, I just kind of threw back on whatever grounds I had available. Didn't really put much thought into it, to be totally honest. But I went ahead and bought some new 2-gauge welding wire, which is probably overkill, but whatever. I mean, it is what it is. And some fresh terminals. So I'm going to go ahead and start thinking about how I want to position those grounds so that they're hidden, but also functional and beneficial to the motor. So we'll see how it goes. As a lot of time with these videos, you start out with one thing and you kind of snowball into something totally else. So that's the plan as of now, and we'll see where we go. Here's the starter off the car. Standard 4AG starter, nothing special about it. T50 trans. So I was just, when I was taking it off the car, I realized I had the loom and a bunch of different chunks and whatnot. So wanted to address that. But as I got deeper into it, I realized this wire was frayed. So thank goodness it never turned into an issue, but definitely something that now that I know that it's there, I got to address, because if I were to just throw it back on, you know, that'll be the first thing that's going to go now. So that's the plan as of now. Wires out. Pretty straightforward. It was just, on that one, it was a 1/2 inch. Not, I don't know. I don't think that's right. I gotta see if I have a metric version. It doesn't make sense to me that it would be a standard. Who knows? I've had this stuff for so long. Who knows what I would have been thinking back then, or if somebody helped me do it and I didn't even realize it. But anyway, so wires off, and then this is the problem here. It's kind of hard to focus in on, but half the wires are frayed or cut, so definitely don't want that. We'll be replacing it with some nice fresh wire. At the recommendation of my friend Dave, got some welding wire, which is pretty sturdy. I gotta see if it fits. No, I have no clearance issues. And we'll put some nice fresh heavy duty O-ring terminals on there with this crimping tool. So like I had said, I had 2-gauge welding wire that I got for this purpose. Well, this and other wiring purposes. Just simply took and measured it up against the old one, but I did add about 6 inches or so because I'm going to try to route this a little bit tighter and more low profile. So just want to give myself enough slack to run it the way I want to and still get to the positive battery terminal. And yeah, not shortchange myself and have to redo it. Unfortunately, the cutters I have are kind of small, so I think I'm just gonna do it with a cutoff wheel and zip it off so it has a nice square edge when I go to crimp it. Went ahead and cut our wire, our cable to length. We were good there. Got our little O-ring terminal ready to go with some shrink sleeve. And got this crimping tool that I borrowed from my friend Dave, who does a lot of electrical work on cars. So let me borrow that for the heavy duty gauge terminal. I'm gonna go ahead and strip this end. Just using a regular razor blade. Being careful to not nick the wire underneath. Now this particular wire does have a protective jacket underneath, or protective like sheathing inside of it. You can kind of feel it when it breaks through and goes to the next layer. Went ahead and got the end stripped, ready to go. Test fit the terminal on it. It's looking good. Goes all the way to the top, has a little bit of gap behind it just to make sure it bottoms out. Once it's done, we'll shrink that on it. Now to crimp this down, I had to borrow some heavy duty crimpers from my friend Dave, but basically it's 2 halves, and when you turn this to on, it acts like a hydraulic jack essentially, and it'll tighten down around the cable. So, probably gonna have to get my son in here to give me an extra set of hands just to get this done. Easiest way I found to do this was I just set up my little portable bench vise, clamped it down, holding the cable in place. Battery terminals on this end. We'll push in on that side, and then I'll slide the crimp tool over it and see how this goes. So the crimping is done. Terminal feels nice and tight on there. I'm going to go ahead and shrink the shrink tubing on it for the end. For a heat source, to shrink the shrink sleeving, I use this little handheld torch. I think it's butane torch. Ideally you use like a heat gun or something. I don't have one handy at the moment. I really need to get one. But in the meantime, just use this guy and just kind of lightly warm up. See, don't put too much heat on it at any given time. Just enough to shrink it down. That's it. Nice and tight connection. This isn't hot. That's not going anywhere. And now we can bolt this back onto the starter and replace all this sheathing, all this jacketing, or loom as they call it. Went ahead and put the some of the original sheathing on just for heat resistance, especially near the block. So I snaked the OEM. I snaked the new cable through the OEM stuff, just kept the original signal wire on there, and also cut the sheathing on that. But that's pretty much it. I'll go ahead and wrap this in some new loom after I connect it to the starter, and it should be good to go back in the car. Went ahead and added some new loom to the wire. I kept the factory sheathing, the heat resistant one underneath for everything, and then just ran this newer aftermarket one just so it looks better. But it should give it nice protection from heat going forward. And that should be it. Now I'll pop it in the car and figure out how I want to run it. Now that the new starter wire is done, time to reinstall it back into the car. Starter's back in the car. We got good clearance with the power wire. I'm gonna have to get the oil pressure sender unit back on the car before I can put the oil filter on, and then I can finish routing this. But we're getting there. Oil pressure sensor's in. New one is in. Put some thread sealant on the threads. Hopefully that'll get rid of that oil leak I was seeing. Starter's installed. Zip tied the wire to the bottom there. No oil filters in. Once I get my covers back, I'll install those, and then I got some new zip ties that mount to the back of the thread. That'll help bring that harness closer to the block, and then I'll bring those together at the bottom and keep them down low. And run the power wire that's here for the starter direct to the battery. And that's it. It's turned into somewhat of a mini tutorial to change the power wire in your starter. So hopefully someone finds it useful. If you do, click like, comment down below your thoughts, yeah, and hopefully you subscribe and share it with your friends. Until next time, peace.